Have you ever been the only quiet person in a room erupting over a goal? Have you ever nodded along to a conversation about the match with absolutely no idea who was even playing? Have you ever watched an entire office go silent, then explode, then groan while you just kept typing? Here's the strangest part. The people who don't watch soccer aren't cold. They're not boring. Many of them care intensely about other things: music, books, causes, people. Most people assume not caring about soccer means you don't understand loyalty or teamwork or passion. But psychology suggests something far more specific is going on. For some people, soccer was never just a game they chose to skip. It's a form of belonging their mind quietly decided not to buy into. By the end of this video, you'll know the 4 psychological patterns behind this disinterest. The first was shaped by what soccer meant inside their own home. The second is about a very specific kind of reward the brain either seeks or doesn't. The third is something you've probably faked your way through at least once this year. And the fourth might be the most personal reason of all. Because sometimes not watching the game isn't about the game at all. Picture a girl 7 years old, standing in a doorway. Her father is on the couch, eyes locked on the television. She says his name. He doesn't turn. The crowd on the screen roars, and so does he. She tries again, louder. Nothing. For 90 minutes, twice a week, her father simply isn't reachable. Psychologists who study early bonding talk about something called attunement. The small, repeated moments where a caregiver notices a child and responds. When those moments are consistently interrupted by the same trigger, the brain starts to associate that trigger with being invisible. Not consciously, not with hatred, just a quiet tag attached to the sound of commentary, the color of a jersey, the shape of a stadium crowd. Years later, she's an adult. Someone invites her to watch the game, expecting genuine excitement. And something in her simply doesn't show up for it. Not out of spite. Because her nervous system learned long ago that this specific noise means you will not be seen right now. If a certain sound or ritual has always quietly made you want to leave the room, type, "I felt that," in the comments. But childhood explains the aversion. It doesn't fully explain why so many others feel nothing at all, neither love nor hate. For that, we have to look at the brain's reward system itself. Psychologists studying group identity describe something called social identity theory. The idea that part of our sense of self comes from belonging to a group, a team, a nation, a tribe. For soccer fans, the team becomes an extension of who they are. When their side scores, the brain doesn't just register a fact. It releases a small wave of dopamine and oxytocin, the same chemistry involved in bonding with other people. That's why a stranger in the same jersey can feel, for 90 minutes, like family. But this reward system isn't equally strong in everyone. Some brains are simply less activated by group symbols, colors, and rituals. They don't feel a dip when their team loses because there was no their team wired into the reward circuit to begin with. This isn't a flaw. It's a different default setting for where belonging gets built. Some people find that exact rush somewhere else entirely. A concert, a book club, a cause, a single close friendship instead of a stadium full of strangers. The chemistry is the same. The trigger is just pointed somewhere else. And the third reason you've almost certainly experienced, probably without saying a word about it. Think about the last time everyone around you was talking about a big match. You didn't want to seem rude or distant or difficult, so you nodded. Maybe you laughed at the right moment. Maybe you said "good game" without having watched a single minute of it. Psychologists call this impression management. The quiet, constant effort we make to appear like we fit the group we're in. For most people, this costs almost nothing. But for someone who genuinely feels nothing during the match, performing interest again and again becomes its own small tax. A tiny gap between who you are and who you're pretending to be, paid every single week. Some people eventually stop paying it. They say simply, "I don't really follow soccer," and brace for the surprised look that usually follows. Because in many cultures, not caring about the sport isn't read as a preference. It's read as a small social failure. Which brings us to the fourth reason, the deepest one. The one that has very little to do with the sport itself. Psychologists talk about something called psychological ownership, the sense of personal investment we attach to things that feel like ours. Fans don't just watch a match. They own it emotionally. The win is their win. The loss is their loss. But psychological ownership is limited. Nobody has an infinite amount of emotional investment to spend. People who don't watch soccer often aren't short on passion. They've simply already placed their ownership somewhere else. In a craft, in a cause, in specific people, not crowds. The girl in the doorway, all those years later, grew into someone who invests deeply, just never in a stadium. She remembers every detail of a friend's hard week. She'll read the same book twice to understand it fully. Her ownership isn't missing. It's just pointed toward things that once actually looked back at her. That doesn't mean sports fandom is shallow. For millions of people, it's real community, real joy, real belonging. But for others, the absence of interest was never really about the ball. It was their heart, quietly deciding where it was safe to invest itself. So the next time someone shrugs at the biggest match of the year, don't assume they're missing something. Maybe ask a gentler question instead, not, "Why don't you like soccer?" But, "Where did you learn to put your heart instead?" Maybe that girl in the doorway never stopped wanting to be seen. She just stopped waiting for a 90-minute match to notice her. This describes you. Comment, "I put my heart elsewhere," below. And if you want to understand why your mind chooses what it chooses, the next video on your screen goes even deeper.